Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Cello 101. Today, we are going to start off with something a little bit different, and that we're going to talk about one of the things that's super important to playing, which is going to be rosin. Rosin, or colophane or colophonium, depending on where you are in the world, is basically something that you put onto your bow, on the horsehair, that helps it grip your string and make it vibrate. Because basically what it does is it makes it tackier, makes it stickier, so that as you draw your bow across, it sticks and pulls the string, and then it skips along the length of the horsehair as you're drawing. And it skips in very, very small steps, so basically it makes the entire length ring. That's why we play towards the end, so that we can make the entire thing ring very easily, because otherwise if you played in the center, you could make it still ring even easier, but it would muffle and mess with the tone. Well, just to, wouldn't normally recommend this, but you can get a lot nicer, mellower tone. It's a lot more muted, and also you tend to smack your instrument with a bow. Do not normally recommend doing that, but as I have finally remembered to actually bring my rag, as you can tell, I've already been practicing today a little bit, working on a side project, and one of the things that you will want to pay attention to is if you can see, there's a whole bunch of white stuff all over my instrument. So normally when you would put it away, you would want to go through and wipe your instrument down, because oddly enough, the stuff that rosin is made from also, for most varnishes, is a major component there as well. Rosin is basically glorified tree sap. They use resinous pitch from usually conifer trees, so pines and all that kind of stuff, and they take the pitch out through a number of different means, usually through heat after the after the tree is dropped and turned into a log. Drive the pitch or the resin out of the tree, and then they boil it down through a rather interesting distillation method. They actually drive off a lot of the impurities and a lot of the they drive off a lot of the very reactive agents, and you are left with a kind of a clear, runny tar stuff. And then that is further refined through filtration methods and that kind of stuff into what turns into rosin. The funny thing is, those same rosin flakes are actually ground up and then dissolved into alcohol and a couple of other things when you go through and make the varnish on like an oil varnish instrument. You're usually adding them with gum arabic and a couple of other things to make a very thin wash that you basically wind up painting on top of the instruments, and then through building up numerous layers on top of the instrument, you get not only the coloration, but also a really nice, long-lasting seal to the instrument that is musically neutral, and keeps it from getting wet and helps water run off of it and helps slow down, not prevent, but slow down the transfer of ambient humidity into the instrument, which makes the wood swell and move and all that kind of stuff. That's one way that you can get cracks, is by taking an instrument from a very dry place where the wood has stabilized and has reached a point of equilibrium in a very low humidity area, and then taking it to a high humidity area with little or no acclimation, or not letting it settle in very long before you start playing and working on it again. So, kind of getting off topic here, but the same stuff that goes into the coloring the varnish on your instrument is actually present in here, which leads to some interesting problems. As you saw me wipe it off earlier, when you... The most basic starter to it is when you're about to play, usually I'll do a couple short strokes up and down the bow, and then one or two long ones, just kind of even everything out. And that's when you've been playing and your bow is well rosined, you don't really need to put a whole lot onto it. If you're practicing for a few hours, you might need to re-rosin after, you know, an hour or two of playing. But usually it's not that big of a deal. As long as the bow is still grabbing and is has purchase on the strings, it's not a big deal. Oddly enough, side tidbit, so we call it rosin usually in the United States. It's also known as colophonium, which does sound distinctly Latin because the name for it, which I can't remember off the top of my head, actually translates back into resin from colophane, which was a Greek, I believe it was a Greek city-state back in the day. So that's where colophonium comes from. So we have now rosined our bow. It allows us to make a noise. And you can see it depositing on the string there. When you're done playing, you want to wipe everything off while it's still relatively fresh, because if it dries on there, it gets really, really hard to take off. And if you play for a while, you know, a couple, 3, 4 months, you'll actually notice and you can hear the rag actually making noise, because there is rosin on the strings there that is grabbing the rag and actually making resonating through the string. So if you notice a lot of buildup on your strings, what you can do is take a cotton ball and then put it over the end of a bottle of icy purple alcohol, splash it once, and then be very careful that you don't get any drips of the alcohol onto the varnish, because it'll actually start dissolving it and moving it. But what you can do is you can wipe that onto the bridge area of your strings with the cotton ball, so that you can actually start dissolving the rosin that's on the string, so that you can then use your rag and wipe it off and get good purchase again without having all that build up on there. But you just want to wipe off directly onto the bridge, you know, wherever you see the flecks of the resin falling, because it will build up on your varnish over time, and then it'll get really, really hard to get off. And at that point, you might wind up messing with the varnish on your instrument, which is not really something you want to do. Thank you very much, and I will catch you again soon.